Are you a motherless daughter? What if we told you we have 20 years worth of truth treasures, pearls of wisdom, and diamonds of hope to help you with your mother loss? We do, and we share all things mother loss on Nurturing Words, Voices of Experience, a podcast by the Motherless Daughters Ministry. Give yourself some self-care and listen as we discuss grief, regret, anger, redemption, closure, and so much more.
Hello, I'm Gladys Bell, your host for today. This week, we are talking about our flagship offering, the Journey Retreat, Healing the Wounds of Mother Loss One Step at a Time. This is an in-person retreat for motherless daughters, both those who have physically lost their mother or those who had mother loss through abandonment, emotional absence, or narcissism. The retreat is a place to find community with other women who have walked the path you are walking. It's about finding a sisterhood, but also about finding healing on your journey. Let's hear the beautiful story of one of our past participants about how life-changing this experience was for her in so many ways.
My journey actually began many years ago, long before I heard about the Motherless Daughters Ministry. It began the day my world turned upside down. I was 13 years old when I went to wake my mother, only to find that she was on the floor and had died of a sudden aneurysm at the age of 45. That is the moment I began to turn my back on God, and my world changed forever. I was lost. I was in 8th grade, and it wasn't just my mom that disappeared on me. My brother left for college, and my dad worked the night shift. I suddenly found myself very alone. Nothing was ever the same again. So I blamed God. I was so angry at him. How could there be a God when I was going through all this pain and heartache? I often wondered. As I waded through the dark and stormy waters of life without my mother these last 30 years, I do believe God kept trying to throw me life rafts. I just wouldn't grab on or even notice them until they were already drifting away. I was drowning, barely able to catch a breath before the waves of darkness swallowed me again and again and again. Through each of life's milestones, I was without her. Through each additional loss, traumatic event, heartache, I was without her. The pain tucked itself away deep inside of me. That scared 13-year-old girl curled up inside of me too, afraid to come out, afraid to face the truth of life that people you love die. People you love will leave you. God was persistent, though. The father I turned my back on had never turned his back on me. I just didn't know it. He tried one more time, dangling before me this new lifeline, the Motherless Daughters Ministry, the Journey Retreat. This time when he threw the life raft, I was truly on the brink of giving up. Although I told myself I was fine, that I didn't need to go, my mom died when I was 13. It's been 30 years. I'm over it. I really did say all of that to myself. However, something inside of me took notice of the chaos building within me. Maybe this is what you need, a small voice whispered inside my head. Perhaps that scared 13-year-old girl that had been hiding in the darkness was finally willing to peek toward the light. Every excuse ran through my mind of why I should not go, but God was crafty and had thrown so many different signs my way that I couldn't deny his hand was making this happen. He also knew that despite the darkness I suffered in alone, or maybe because of it, I did have a propensity to not want to disappoint. If I commit, I'm going to see it through. And there was a friend going to this retreat as well. She didn't know my story yet, but I told her I would go, so I felt compelled to see it through. I never realized the weight I was truly carrying inside of me until I started the car in Knoxville, Tennessee, and began the journey to Cincinnati, Ohio. I was alone for the first time in a long time. I did not have the distractions of daily life fighting for my attention. This trip was about me, my mom, and my past. I barely made it out of the town before I had to wipe the sweat from my palms. You see, I was born and raised in Cincinnati. I spent all the years I had with my mom living in Milford, Ohio, and Anderson Township. So this journey to the Motherless Daughters Retreat was not only an opportunity to check out the journey to healing, but also an opportunity to go by my childhood home, my school, and even my mom's grave. As I meandered through all my old stomping grounds, reminiscing along the way, I had no idea that a thought would be planted in my head to visit my old church. My mom was the one who always made us go to church. In fact, we went to church almost every activity, but when she died, we just never went back again. I had never even considered that to be a place I would want to visit. I decided to listen to that inner voice telling me to go by my old church. I pulled in the parking lot with my racing heart and just sat taking it all in. I imagined all the live nativity scenes I was a part of, the cookouts, the Easter egg hunts, all of those with my mom by my side. I forced my feet out of the car and up to the door of the church, rang the bell, and waited. When I first stepped through the threshold of that door, something happened. A wall crumbled. A dam broke inside of me. Tears from the 13-year-old girl hiding inside of me poured out. One of those soul-cleansing ugly cries. If you know, you know. This journey to healing had taken me to a sacred, safe space. The place where I first found God, where we built our foundation, and it felt like He had been waiting there for me. This was my church. This is where I left God and where I would begin to find Him again. I was crying so hard, the poor woman that let me in probably thought I was crazy. But no, she was calm, caring, and listened. A dear friend would later tell me that God had likely prepared her for a visitor that day. I remembered everything about that church. It was a piece of my childhood heart and soul that I had completely forgotten about. But God knew. He knew that in order for me to continue on my way to the Motherless Daughters Ministry retreat, I had to visit the roots of my fractured relationship with God. I needed to lay my anger to rest. I needed to let those tears fall. With my swollen eyes and lightened heart, I headed on to Milford to Green Lawn Cemetery where my mom and several other family members are buried. I had not visited her grave more than 3 or 4 times in the last 30 years, always finding an excuse not to go. But this was beginning to feel different. This was beginning to feel more important, like this trip, this retreat, just might be the window to the breath of fresh air I had been seeking. I planned enough time to actually sit and talk to my mom before I went to check into the retreat. I pulled out a camping chair I had in the car and I sat, and I talked, and I cried next to her headstone. I told her all the things I could, my fears, my failures, my daughter, my marriage, my proudest moments. Tears, anger, and heartache poured out from me. I was broken. I was on the verge of giving up, but was willing to make the effort for one last glimmer of light that was shining about 2 miles away at the Journey Retreat. Walking into the retreat was incredibly scary. These people were all strangers, except the one friend I knew. A woman walked up to me in the parking lot. She offered me a hug, an introduction, but it was also a lifeline into the sea of comfort and unconditional support I was about to unknowingly dive into. One introduction after another soon led to a large room with 16 people, but the fear and anxiety ebbed away with the realization that these were my people. They were all dealing with mother loss, every single one of them. It wasn't until they began to share their own stories that I fully felt the connection with all of them. The facilitators and volunteers provided an example of how to shine your light in the dark, an example of bravery and courage, so that we too could begin to write and share our stories with one another. The Journey Retreat was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life, but it was also one of the most amazing and best experiences of my life. Sharing my feelings, my story, the life events that had been so difficult I didn't even realize were tucked away inside of me. This retreat was challenging, while also loving and compassionate. It was soul-searching, with a dose of laughter and friendship I have no doubt will last a lifetime. I walked in meeting strangers, but I left with sisters. Sisters I never knew I needed, but they are now a part of my soul forever. I knew this retreat would be a journey home, to my hometown, to my mom, to the feelings of my past. But what I found was that this was my journey home. Home to my loving God, and in retrospect, had never left my side. He stood by me through the storms with his hand upon my shoulder until I was ready to step forward with him by my side. He shaped the world around me and placed people in my path along the way. And when he knew I was ready, he made the push to take me the rest of the way across that threshold into the healing arms of Motherless Daughters Ministry. I arrived filled with doubt, drowning in rough waters, but I left a water walker. Blessed, cleansed, broken, yet remade. I left with fresh new eyes and a new perspective on my life and the way God had been working in my life for years. I will forever be grateful to the Motherless Daughters Ministry and the renewed hope, the renewed life, and sense of community they have given me. I used to think I could not have a strong faith because I turned my back on God for so long. But now I think maybe those with the greatest trauma, the greatest heartache and sorrow, might just become the ones with the strongest faith. I may not be an avid churchgoer, but my church often comes through music, through lyrics that speak to my soul. If I were to pick a song to sum up the Motherless Daughters Journey Retreat, it would be Ellie Holcomb's I Will Carry You.
We're going to take a short break to tell you about an opportunity, and then we'll come right back to the podcast.
Mother loss is a lifelong grief journey. The scars go deep and the pain is relentless. It affects every aspect of a woman's being, regardless of age of loss or how the loss occurred. The hole is deep and filled with many emotions. You are invited to our online support community with the Motherless Daughters Ministry online support groups, focusing on the journey and the difficult obstacles that get in the way of healing. To learn more about our weekly support group offerings, visit us online at motherlessdaughtersministry.com.
And now, allow me to share some thoughts from our podcast administrator, Sarah Lynn Wells. Wow, what a beautiful story of healing. We are so thankful to our participant for sharing her heart. It's powerful to see how God used that experience to touch her heart in so many ways, including bringing her back to her hometown and her mother's grave. It is a blessing to hear how many of our participants experience comfort and healing during the few days at our retreat. If you or someone you know could benefit from the Journey Retreat, please check out the link in our show notes to find out more about this opportunity. You can find other testimonies about the retreat in the blog library on our website. You may have already attended the retreat and traveled further down the path of healing. There are additional offerings for growth, support, and opportunities to get involved with the ministry as you heal from the impact of loss. Check out our show notes or visit our website to find out more about getting involved. We would love to add you to our sisterhood and walk with you through this journey. One final thought. Let's keep the women in our prayers who will take the brave step to walk through the doors of the retreat or any of the other offerings for support. I'm sure they'll be nervous and apprehensive of what is to come, but it is our prayer they leave lighter and knowing they have others to walk this journey with them.
Thank you for joining us here at Motherless Daughters Ministry. If you need more nurturing words, we encourage you to have a listen to other episodes of this podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe or follow button so you can join us again next time.